So my name is Charlene. I'm originally from California. I moved to the East Coast when I was like maybe 13. Got my bachelor's in biology. I thought I wanted to be a doctor when I started out, and 4 years into it, right before graduation, I decided I wanted to shadow a bunch of doctors to see if this is really what I wanted to do, and I hated it. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be like. I shadowed 12 pediatricians, and my idea of what a doctor would be like wasn't what I was actually saying. I thought I was going to have time with patients. I thought I was going to learn a whole bunch. I thought I was going to actually build a rapport, see them from sick to being better, and it wasn't like that. It was a lot of times just spending time in a room, searching diagnoses, thinking of what medications will work for them, and I didn't get any of the patient care that I wanted to do. So I decided that I wanted to go into nursing instead, and I shadowed a nurse practitioner, and I volunteered in the NICU. That's a neonatal intensive care unit, and I fell in love with that. So telling my mom that I no longer want to be a doctor and I want to be a nurse, my mom was like, "What? Are you serious? Like, you just spent, I don't know, $120,000 going to school, and now you're not even gonna go for that." She's like, "If you knew you wanted to be a nurse, you could have done that right away." But for me, I felt like if I was gonna put more school into it and more time and money, I wanted to make sure I was gonna love what I do after. So I graduated and I started working in the operating room. I transfuse blood. So when people need like donor blood, or when you guys donate at American Red Cross, that comes from other people. But what I would do is take the patient's own blood during surgeries and then wash it, clean it out, and then give it back to them. And that was a little bit better for them because it helped increase oxygen levels and helped them to heal quicker. So I did that for about 5 years, and I went back into school, and I recently graduated as a nurse, and I started working September 1st. So I'm a month and a half, or almost 2 months in now, to being a new nurse. But what I wanted to touch on with you guys was pretty much studying. When I was in high school, I was an A student. It was a breeze. It wasn't any issues. When I got into college, it was completely different. I was getting C's, I was getting D's. Organic chemistry was like the worst thing that I've ever seen in my life. Has anyone taken chemistry, or is anyone taking chemistry now? Yeah. Who loves chemistry? Okay. For the rest of you guys who are taking chemistry, who hates chemistry? Yeah, so I was in that category. I did not like it. For me, it just did not click. No matter how much studying I did, it wasn't for me. So I actually had a boyfriend in college, and he was like taking sports training classes, and he was really good at chemistry, so I asked him to take the class with me. He got A's without studying, ever. I would be up all night studying, like cramming, and I would still get a D. So you know how some people just get it and then other people have to work hard for it? That was me. When I got into college, I had to learn how to work hard for it. And it was really aggravating because school came so easy in high school that I didn't know what I needed to do to study in college. So I was trying everything to try to figure out what would work. So eventually I figured out my methods and what works best for me, and then I got into nursing school, and then again it was a completely different thing again. Nursing school is not like regular college at all. I tell people all the time, nursing was much harder than getting my bachelor's. And people are kind of shocked by that because you're thinking like 4 years, how is 4 years harder than a 2-year degree? Nursing is completely different. It's a completely different way of thinking. You have to like foresee something that's gonna happen and you don't even know what's happening yet. You have to also think back to things that you wouldn't even think are related, but actually are. So wanted to touch on like what I did for me to go from getting C's and D's and sometimes F's to becoming an A student. So first thing I want to ask is, who thinks having a high IQ is what makes you get good grades? Good. It's true. Who thinks hard work is what makes you get good grades? Exactly. All right, so who thinks that if you study, I don't know, say 20 hours a week, you're going to guarantee to get a good grade? Right.
We've all failed at that.
Who's been in the boat where you've studied like 20, 30 hours and you've still got a bad grade? Right now? I understand that. So for me, that was my problem. Like, I would spend 20, 30 3 hours and I would still get a bad grade. And I'm like, come on, like what am I doing wrong? So you guys have heard of Michael Jordan, right? Yeah. All right, so Michael Jordan said, you could shoot 10,000 balls, right? And if you have bad technique, all you've done is just perfected shooting badly. So the idea is that if you do the same things that are getting you the bad grades, and you just work harder at doing the same things, you're not improving anything. You're only getting better at doing the bad things. So you have to change the way you're thinking, you have to change the way you study. So in nursing school, my first test, and I only remember this because I legit cried in class because I was so upset that I failed my first test. And I'm like, how can this be? I studied for hours, I knew everything, I just don't get what I did wrong. And then I spoke with one of my teachers and she said, nursing school, and this is gonna go for all tests, it doesn't test your memory, it tests how you can relate the information to what is actually on the test. So you have to learn how to study smarter. So I was able to figure out what works best for me, and then I shortened my amount of time that I was studying. Instead of spending 20 hours a week on studying, I was shortening it down to 5 hours, and my grades went from getting a 66 to a 98. And for my friends, were like, what are you doing? So I started talking to them, and I'll tell you this right now. Most of my friends, or I would say most of my nursing class, referred to me as the sandbox queen. And pretty much what it was is I would only study with people who got good grades. And it sounds mean, and it sounds bad, but at the same time you have to understand, you have to learn from each other. You all have to push each other to do well. If you have somebody that is not studying well and doesn't have the drive to study well, it now becomes a tutoring session for them. And you are tutoring them, and you are not learning. So you have to figure out what works best for you. For me, I need people who are doing the same, who are gonna push me to do better. Other people, they like to study with everyone else who has like the same knowledge and are on the same level, but if you guys are still getting the same grades, you're not doing anything to help yourself. You're just doing the same again and again, and you're gonna get the same grades. So when I was studying with my friends, it was pretty much like each one of us had a goal. We all had to improve our next test score by 5, 10 points, whatever. Or what we would do is figure out what we needed. We'd figure out our average and figure out what we needed to pass the class, because we're like, this is not fun anymore. So that's what we did. In nursing school, they make us take a HESI, and you figure out your learning style. For me, I found out I was a visual learner, a tactile learner, and then a little bit auditory. So pretty much what it means is I like to see things. I like to see pictures, diagrams. I like to color code, highlighters, colored pens. I'm telling you, I'm insane with it. I am like Office Depot's like #1 fan. I have every colored pen, every highlighter. My notes looks like a rainbow. And the teachers, they all think it's funny, but it's what worked for me. Because if I couldn't recall the information, I could remember what color it was and where it was, and I could start to like remember like an idea of what was around there. So that was like the first thing I did. Then I stopped trying to study based off of how everyone else told me to study. You know, writing your notes down on a piece of paper and then going over it. I started writing on blank pieces of paper, like printer paper, and I'd write my notes anywhere and everywhere, and I would draw arrows to relate it to the information that I learned before. Or I would go back into my notes that I've taken before and add notes to that point. So don't get stuck in one way of studying, because it won't always help you. In fact, if you know you're getting bad grades, you have to change it up. When recalling stuff, if you're trying to do just memory, and you're memorizing a list of words, you're just going over and over and over again, there's a good chance you're going to forget it. So I read this study that said if you group letters together, then you'll have an easier time remembering. B, CLA, XC, BSD, BDA, BC. Now I'm going to tell you guys, if you would have studied the words in this way, or if you would have been able to write it down, you guys would have seen this better. But listen to this. NBC, LAX, CBS, DVD, ABC.
NBC like the station?
Yeah. There's a study that said that adolescents are able to recall 7 things in their memory, plus or minus 2 things. But the main thing is that it has to be grouped together. Meaning, if you relate it to something that you know, it's a lot easier to recall it. Trying to recall a bunch of letters, it means absolutely nothing. Just like studying nutrition, right now it means absolutely nothing to you. It's just a test, right? It was like just a test. But if you relate it to things that are actually important to you, it starts to make sense where you actually care more. So for me, I took nutrition, and when I took the class, it didn't matter anything to me. Now as a nurse, it matters, because now I need to know nutrition so I can counsel my patients. Now, I looked at your test and I'm like, I don't remember half this stuff. to be honest with you. So it's all about repetition, but it's also about how you recall the memory. When I learned it in school, it didn't mean anything to me. So when I learned it in nursing school, it now became something where I had to relate it to, I have patients who have diabetes, so now I need to know their glucose. I need to know what foods they're eating because carbohydrates could turn into sugars and then that can increase their blood sugar levels. So it's like that kind of stuff. So if you relate it to what you actually care about. So